Okay, here we are, the book of Daniel. And oh my goodness, I read this again and I can't believe it every time I find more. So I already had extensive notes of all kinds of goodies I'm going to show. And then I did a little digging, and one thing led to another. And I find all this other stuff that is dynamite. So if you enjoyed the Zachariah one, you're really going to love this. Okay, so here we go. So Daniel, I'm gonna use all kinds of things. So I'm gonna be zooming in and out, but I'll put it on two for now. So chapter 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with some of the articles of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. And he brought the articles into the treasure house of his God. Okay, so a couple of things here. One is that this was what God was warning would happen all the time as a consequence if they didn't repent. And surprise, that's what happened. So this is the fulfillment of that prophecy. He said it all these times. He's going to bring the king of Babylon against them and take Jerusalem and all that land, and they just blew it off. But here it is. It happened. So anyway, that's that. And then, and then there's articles as well, like in the history part, there's that thing where Hezekiah shows them all these treasures in the temple. And which prophet was it? I think it was Elijah. But anyway, one of the prophets came up to him and said, okay, everything you just showed him, they're going to carry off to Babylon. Like now they just have the full inventory of what goodies they're going to get. All right, and that's exactly what happened there. So, and then it's in Shinar again, Babylon, all that. So this is what's happened there. Okay. 3. Then the king instructed Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, to bring some of the children of Israel and some of the king's descendants and some of the nobles, young men in whom there was no blemish, but good-looking, gifted in all wisdom, possessing knowledge, and quick to understand. They would have taken me for sure. All right, when I was young, okay? All right, anyway, who had ability to serve in the king's palace. So they were looking for, the choice prime specimens here who they thought they might be able to help us somehow. Okay? All right. And whom they might teach the language and literature of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed for them a daily provision of the king's delicacies and of the wine which he drank, and 3 years of training for them, so that at the end of that time they might serve before the king. Okay, so he was going to, according to him, he was going to treat them well. Now from among those of the sons of Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Okay, so from the sons of Judah. So from, that group they were looking to get someone from. They chose these 4. I don't know if there were more, but they mentioned them by name. To them, the chief of the eunuchs gave names. He gave Daniel the name Belteshazzar, to Hananiah, Shadrach, to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego. All right. And these were pagan names, okay. All right, 8. But now, this is just like me too, by the way. I would have done this too. Watch this. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's delicacies, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the chief of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now God had brought Daniel into the favor and goodwill of the chief of the eunuchs. And the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who has appointed your food and drink. For why should he see your faces looking worse than the young men who are your age? Then you would endanger my head before the king. Okay, so in plain English, this means I would love to accommodate you, Daniel, but he's going to kill me if I even mention that to him. Okay, so, all right, but watch how this goes. So, Daniel was the scientific type, so he thought, oh, let's make a science experiment out of this. So watch this. 11. So Daniel said to the steward whom the chief of the eunuchs had set over. Did I get all that? Yeah. Okay. Over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. Okay, in another translation, I think it's the Old King James, it has the word pulse, Pulse, which means beans. When translated, again, it's beans. So basically, it was like beans, legumes, vegetables. It was a vegetarian diet and water. Okay, so doesn't mean they didn't eat fruit or rice or any of that, but it's just like it was all vegetarian basically. So I'll get back to that. Then let our appearance be examined before you, and the appearance of the young men who eat the portion of the king's delicacies. And as you see fit, so deal with your servants. So, do the experiment and see what happens. We'll go with the results. And he knew. Yep. So he consented with them in this matter and tested them 10 days. So this is how Daniel gets his way, okay? He was a smart one. Yep. And not only that, but anyway, here we go. 15. And at the end of 10 days, their features appeared better and fatter in flesh than all the young men who ate the portion of the king's delicacies. Thus the steward took away their portion of delicacies and the wine that they were to drink and gave them vegetables. I can just imagine the dirty looks that Daniel was getting. Anyway, okay, but it will go on, but I want to mention that this is actually true. Anyway, it's true, of course, but I have done these kinds of experiments in my own life, and it happened just by chance sometimes. When I was really young, I just had a thing I didn't want. Oh, and by the way, these delicacies, I'm sure, were full of all the unkosher yuckies that they would eat that they thought were just the best thing ever. And when you eat really well, you look at that and you recoil. So, okay, now, before everybody starts getting mad, I'll explain. Like when I was young, I just had a thing. I didn't want to eat animals. I was sensitive, and this didn't start till sometime later in my teens. And so, anyway, I did this, and then later, it did have its benefits, but then later I changed my diet again. There were other reasons for this. And then later, again in my 20s, I did change it again. And each time it was a little different. Okay, there were times in my life I ate no meat. There were times in my life I ate certain meats only, like fish, or only white meat, including poultry, or just there were times I ate all the meats. There were times I ate only kosher meats, so all the meat, but not pork and not processed meat, because you never know what's in there. I could tell stories, but anyway, I'll skip that for now. So there were times I did that, and there were times even when I did that or didn't do it, I ate a whole lot of healthy foods at the side. And the fact is, the more I ate fruits and vegetables and just beans and those things and fruits, fruit juices and all that stuff, the healthier I was. And the more weight I lost, the better looking I was. And it even healed my body of certain problems I had. So I can swear by that. I mean, it works, okay? And yes, your mind works better. Everything in your body, in fact, works better. So it's a fact. And yeah, so I have always been an advocate of healthy eating. And there's even a certain order to do things, like if you eat more fruits in the morning and wait a while. And it was a certain diet book I read a long time ago, and it works. But anyway, if you look up things like this, you'll see there are certain ways to go about this, like the way you combine foods, mix them a certain way or not a certain way. Don't mix different meats together, it's not healthy. Just different things like that. Look into that if you're interested, and you'll find a wealth of information. And I mean, it was a lifesaver. It made me so much healthier and better. My body functioned better from head to toe. So it is true. And there's a lot of, in the culture today, unfortunately, even in conservative camps, there's a lot of bashing of this kind of thing, like, oh, you're supposed to eat meat, and oh, like there's something wrong with you, you're weak if you're a vegetarian, and this kind of thing. I've seen the attitudes everywhere, and it's like, well, not according to the word of God, actually, because in fact, they were vegetarians from Adam down to Noah. It wasn't until after the flood that he gave them meat to eat. Not that it was bad. They had sacrifices like that one in the garden, and later with Abel and all that. I'm sure maybe they ate that meat, but it wasn't like they ate meat all the time. But from Noah on, it was more like they didn't have anything else anyway, because nothing had really grown much. There was no produce, right? But the animals from the ship were there, from the ark. So, like, he gave them meat to eat. And then the sacrifices came in later and all that, So there's nothing wrong with it. But if you eat too much meat, it's actually unhealthy. And I know there are people out there who don't want to face that music, and there's nothing I can do. They don't want to face that science, but it's true. So, anyway, I'm not going to make this a science lesson, but he did it and it worked, okay? So, anyway, just want to put that out there. If you're looking for, it can help you, it can even save your life. Okay, Not that that doesn't matter, right? Okay, so anyway. All right, so this is what happened. They did that. So he got to keep his undefiled ways and diet, and that's good. Okay. So let's see here. Now, 17. As for these 4 young men, God gave them knowledge and skill in all literature and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Now, at the end of the days, just a second. Okay. At the end of the days, when the king had said that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. Then the king interviewed them, and among them all none was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they served before the king. So they were obviously more in the group. It was a bigger group, but these 4 were chosen as the best among them. All right. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding about which the king examined them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers who were in all his realm. Thus Daniel continued until the 1st year of King Cyrus. So they were better in every way, okay? They were spiritually, of course, in tune with God, so they would be better in those ways and be able to understand spiritual things. And they were better otherwise because of the diet. There are reasons why God put that in there. That's what they were following. So anyway, that's that. Now, Daniel continues in this service of employment until he's old. I guess maybe, I don't know if he's alive when they go back, but he's around quite a long time. All right, chapter 2. Now in the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said to them, I have had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic, O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will give the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, My decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me and its interpretation, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be